Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a concept that's really shaking up how we think and solve problems: interdisciplinary studies. It's this big idea that promises to break down the walls between different subjects. But is it a truly revolutionary path to discovery, or is it just a confusing mess? Let's get into it.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First up, we're going beyond the boundaries to really ask, why even do this in the first place? Then we'll look at the promise, the huge upside of having a wider view. After that, we got to face the pitfalls, because this path can get pretty rocky. And then we'll talk about forging the path forward and wrap it all up with the takeaway, what it really means to do this delicate dance.
So let's just start right there. In a world that loves specialists, why on earth would we venture outside the cozy, familiar lines of our traditional subjects?
I mean, really think about that for a second. When we're up against these huge, tangled challenges we face today, can a single field, whether it's biology or economics or history, can it possibly have all the answers? Probably not, right? And that's the core problem that interdisciplinary studies is trying to tackle.
So, let's get on the same page with what we're talking about. At its heart, interdisciplinary studies is all about integration. This is not just, dabbling a little in different subjects. It's about methodically weaving together insights from different fields to create something new, a much richer, more complete picture of whatever problem you're trying to solve.
So, what happens when you actually start weaving those different threads together? What does that new picture look like? Well, that brings us right to the promise of it all, the incredible rewards you get from taking that wider view.
Okay, the first big win is getting a truly holistic understanding. Instead of just seeing one little piece of the puzzle, you get to see how all the pieces actually connect and fit together. By pulling in different viewpoints, scholars can see all these complex layers that a specialist who's just focused on their one corner might completely miss.
And you know what happens when you see the whole picture? It's a huge engine for creativity. When you start mixing different ways of thinking, different toolkits, and applying them to the same problem, you create this space where brand new, innovative solutions can just pop up. Imagine combining the precision of a chemistry lab with the insights of a sociology class. That's where the magic happens.
And this is where the rubber really meets the road. I mean, think about the biggest problems we have right now. Climate change, pandemics, the impact of AI. None of these things live in a tidy little academic box. They're messy, they're complex, and they touch on everything: society, the economy, science, culture, all at once. This approach is basically tailor-made to take on these massive, real-world issues.
And the perks go beyond just the research itself. This way of working forces experts to build bridges between their fields, to come up with a shared language so they can actually communicate and collaborate. And for the people doing it, it builds incredible flexibility and adaptability, skills that are, let's be honest, absolutely essential in a world that changes as fast as ours does.
Okay, but let's be real. It's not all sunshine and breakthroughs. Tearing down academic walls that have been standing for centuries comes with its own set of serious challenges. This journey can definitely be a rocky path, and we have to understand the pitfalls. And that brings us to the central tension of this whole thing, the depth versus breadth dilemma. On one hand, you have the specialist. They dig super deep into one field, but they risk having a narrow, tunnel vision perspective. On the other hand, you have the interdisciplinarian. They see the big, broad landscape, but they might be accused of being a jack of all trades and master of none. Finding the balance here is the whole game. And beyond that big philosophical question, you've got a ton of practical, real-world obstacles. For instance, just getting experts to agree on methods. I mean, how do you blend a historian's approach to archives with a computer scientist's data models? Then there are the institutional barriers. Funding, promotions, recognition, they're often still tied to old-school departments. This can lead to some serious resistance from established experts, and frankly, doing this kind of work right is incredibly time-consuming and expensive. Now, acknowledging all those challenges isn't about being negative. It's about being realistic so we can actually find some solutions. So, how do we forge a path forward? How do we build the bridges that we need to make this work? Well, the source material lays out a pretty clear 5-part game plan. It starts with big structural stuff, like creating dedicated centers that can be hubs for this kind of collaboration, and pushing for targeted funding to make it all possible. But it also means training people specifically in interdisciplinary methods, so they have the tools to actually build those bridges. And maybe most important of all, it demands a cultural shift, creating a place that genuinely rewards teamwork and new ideas over just staying in your lane.
So as we start to pull this all together,
What's the big takeaway here? It really brings us back to that idea of balance, of performing this really delicate dance between different worlds.
At the end of the day, success here isn't about choosing breadth over depth or collaboration over specialization. The key is finding the sweet spot between them. It's about being a smart navigator, balancing the huge potential of a wider view with the very real challenges of funding, tradition, and time.
And when we get that dance right, the goal is something pretty profound. The source puts it perfectly, saying we can achieve a more interconnected and enlightened understanding of the rich tapestry of knowledge that defines our collective pursuit of wisdom. I mean, that's really the ultimate goal, isn't it? A richer way of knowing. And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. In a world where everything is connected, where every major problem crosses every boundary we've ever drawn, what's the real cost if we just decide to stay in our lane? Thanks for joining this explainer.